This is the mission history for the second week of October, delivered by Pastor James Hong. You know, if you've ever taken a walk along that famous stone wall path near Duxagung Palace in Seoul, there's no way you could miss it. That beautiful, iconic red brick building of the Jeongdong First Methodist Church. Today, we're going to dig into the story of this incredible landmark, and as you'll see, it is so much more than just a building.
Okay, so to really get why this church is so important, we have to rewind the clock to when Protestantism was just starting to take root in Korea. The nation's very first Presbyterian church, Saemunon, got its start in late September of 1887. Well, just 2 weeks later, that's it, only 2 weeks. On October 11th, Jeongdong First Methodist Church was born. And just like that, it became the mother church of Korean Methodism. And its beginnings were about as humble as you can get. This wasn't some grand cathedral that appeared overnight, no. It all started as a small group of the very first Korean Methodist believers, gathering together inside the private home of an American missionary named Henry Appenzeller. It all began with a simple act of faith, right there in a living room.
So from that really simple start, the church went on to create this incredible legacy of firsts, leaving a massive mark on Korean culture and society. Let's dive into how it became such a pioneering force. We know its original name was actually Bethel Chapel. That beautiful brick building that we all recognize today, which by the way is now historic site number 256, was built 10 years later in 1897. And it has been standing there, a silent witness to more than a century of Korean history unfolding around it. The church's impact on culture was just profound. Get this. In 1918, it installed the very first pipe organ in all of Korea. Now, this wasn't just about a new instrument. It was like the soundtrack for a whole new era. The Jeongdong Church Choir pretty quickly became a leader in the nation's Protestant music scene. But this new era the church was helping to create wasn't just about culture. Its influence went so much deeper, turning its halls into a vital sanctuary for patriots and a true crucible where the future leaders of a nation were forged during one of Korea's toughest times. It was right within its walls that the Independence Association was formed. And the names involved are just remarkable. We're talking about Seo Jae-pil, a young Syngman Rhee, Yeon Chi-ho. These were the thinkers and the activists dreaming of a modern, independent Korea, and they chose this church as their meeting place. It was also the site of the Manmin Gongdong-ho, which was this groundbreaking public forum. This was a space where ordinary people could actually gather and make their voices heard, a totally radical idea for the time. This church wasn't just a place of worship, it was a center for civic action. But this incredible period of hope took a really tragic turn. Because of scheming by conservative factions, the Independence Association was forcibly shut down. Its key members, the very people who had gathered in that church with such high hopes, were arrested and thrown into prison. But something truly transformative happened in the darkness of those prison cells. Leaders like Syngman Rhee and Yi Sang-jae, while facing unbelievable hardship, had a profound spiritual awakening. It was right there, in prison, that they truly accepted the gospel. And this intersection, this meeting point of faith and patriotism, is what defined the church's legacy. It's a legacy built by the absolutely incredible individuals who called this place their spiritual home. So let's take a look at the people who shaped this history. The leadership really reflects this whole journey. The missionary, Henry Appenzeller, he served as the first pastor. But by the time they got to the fourth pastor, Choi Byung-yeon, the leadership had transitioned to a Korean. The church was truly becoming a Korean church. And just look at the pastors who followed him. The 5th, 6th, and 7th pastors, Hyun-soon, Son Jung-do, and Lee Pil-ju, they weren't just spiritual leaders. They were all decorated independence activists officially recognized for their contributions to the nation. The pulpit and the patriot movement were completely intertwined here. This connection became crystal clear during the March 1st movement in 1919, which was one of the most significant events in all of Korean history. The church's own pastor, Lee Pil-ja, and an evangelist, Park Dong-won, were right there among the 33 national representatives who signed the Declaration of Independence. This church shared in the nation's suffering and in its fight for freedom. It's almost hard to wrap your head around the sheer concentration of history within this one single congregation. I mean, you've got Yu Guan-sun, a student member who became a martyr for independence. You have Yoon Chi-ho, a church elder and a leading Enlightenment thinker. And then you have Syngman Rhee, another elder who would go on to become the first president of South Korea. The fact that all these figures were in one place is just astonishing. So, All of this leads to a final, really powerful question. This church wasn't just part of history. In so many ways, its story is the story of modern Korea. So how did one church that started in a missionary's living room become so central to the history of an entire nation?
Pastor James Huang, who served as a missionary to China, now ministers in Maryland, USA. He is a researcher of Korean mission history and delivers these weekly messages from his book, Remember and Repay, 52 Weeks of Mission Meditations.